We are heading into another critical week for Canadian politics. Premiers are set to meet with the Prime Minister to discuss a response to tariff threats from U.S. President-elect Donald Trump. The government says all options are on the table, as one premier already had her own meeting at Mar-a-Lago this weekend. Danielle Smith ensuring energy exports are front and center in the ongoing talks.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at the report about Danielle Smith going to Mar-a-Lago over the weekend to meet with Donald Trump. Now this seems to be causing a bit of a rift or confusion in terms of what the provinces and the premiers want to do versus what the federal government wants to do. Because during the weekend on Vashi Capello's show, Melanie Joly was on, and she made the claim that anything is on the table, as well as saying this in regards to shutting off the energy to the U.S.
So if these tariffs are applied as he has threatened them to be, which we don't know the case, he hasn't announced that, you know, the specifics of it, but he's saying 25%. I was interviewing six economists, the top six economists, the chief ones for all the big banks the other day. And collectively, they said the hit to the economy, we're looking to the tunes of millions of jobs. You're looking at a 3% contraction and essentially an immediate recession. So it's in that vein, against that backdrop, I ask you about what retaliation would look like. Is your government prepared to cut off supplies of energy, for example, to the United States?
What I can tell you is everything is on the table. And that's the conversation we will have, the Prime Minister, Minister LeBlanc, and myself, with the premiers next week. And that's a conversation also I'll take to Republican senators and key Republican decision makers in Washington next week. Because this is indeed a decision that would be taken by President-elect Trump that would have devastating impacts on Canadians. And so for those who are watching us right now, it is important to understand that the threat is real and we're acting on it. And that's why I'm calling every political leader in this country to be on board, because this is not time for division, this is not time for weakness, this is time of strength and unity.
However, today Danielle Smith did a bit of press in regards to her trip to Mar-a-Lago, and this is actually what she said when she was asked about what Melanie Joly said.
Yesterday, Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly talked about, she was asked specifically if in negotiations with Trump, Canada would consider an energy embargo on the United States. And I want to, as leverage, what do you think, what do you make of what she said?
Well, first of all, it's oil and gas is owned by the provinces, principally Alberta, and we won't stand for that. And you should never, ever threaten something you cannot do. And I would encourage the minister to look at a map of where Line 5 goes. Line 5 comes down through Michigan to get to Sarnia. And then that feeds the bulk of the supply needed for Ontario and connects with Line 9, which feeds the bulk of the product needed for Quebec. And so if you cut off that line, you are cutting off Ontario and Quebec. So I would encourage the ministers to either understand how our integrated pipeline system works and start looking at ways that we would be able to practically respond, because there's no point in making empty threats that cannot be executed on. So there are other things, I'm sure, that that we'll all talk about collectively, but let's just remember how integrated our markets are with the Enbridge system, the TC Energy system, that we have a product going back and forth across the border every single day. And we cannot do anything that harms Canadians in such a substantial way. So I just don't take that as a credible threat. I'm sure that the U.S. administration won't either. So we should talk about things that we actually can do as opposed to empty threats.
Now, if you're unaware of what Danielle Smith was talking about, if we look at the map of the pipelines that we have, here from Alberta, this is Line 5, and this connects into Minnesota, North Dakota, which then disperses into their pipelines, which then reemerges back into our pipeline here in Sarnia, like she was talking about. So that's Line 5 connecting to the States, connecting to Line 9, which then comes back into Canada, up to Montreal and even further. So this is what Danielle Smith is trying to say. Like, we wouldn't just be hurting them, we would be cutting our own supply off as well, which wouldn't make much sense. Now, the reporter goes on to ask, well, what if the federal government decided to go through with this? And she basically said the federal government would have much bigger problems at that point.
If they were to proceed down that path for some reason, what would be Alberta's response?
Well, they will have a national unity crisis on their hands at the same time as having a crisis with our U.S. trade partners. We just won't stand for that. And I don't think Ontarians and Quebec should stand for that as well. They shouldn't be standing by and listening while a federal minister talks about cutting off their energy supply. That's just not on. That makes no sense.
Now, I highly doubt that Smith was under the impression that meeting with Trump would remove the tariffs. And she actually did say that in her interview. She said, be prepared, tariffs will be on the way. I think she was just trying to emphasize maybe shortening the window that we might be dealing with tariffs by emphasizing how critical the energy sector is for the relationship between the U.S. and Canada.
I think we need to be prepared that tariffs are coming. That seems to me I think we've all seen the biggest irritant to the United States are trade deficits, which they believe they have. I don't actually believe they have a trade deficit. When you take out energy, we actually buy more goods and services from the U.S. than they buy from us. I'm happy to make this National Bank report available to anyone who wants it, that shows we actually have $58 billion in a trade deficit with the Americans when you take energy out. And that's why I wanted to have the assurance that the Americans are interested in getting more of our oil and gas, because I think oil and gas is going to be key to being able to get a breakthrough once tariffs do come in getting them off.
However, in regards to the federal government, the leader of the NDP, Jagmeet Signh, decided to have a little press conference today, and he was talking the complete opposite. He was talking very much like Melanie Joly. Anything's on the table. We need to fight, show them strength, give them pain, and this is what he had to say.
Donald Trump is a clear threat to Canada. His tariff threats are directly threatening hundreds and thousands of Canadian jobs. They also threaten to increase the cost of living at a time when people are already struggling with the cost of groceries and the cost of their bills. So it is serious. We have to take it seriously. And that's why what we've seen again and again has not worked. Going to meet with them, trying to wine and dine them is a failed approach. Donald Trump is not rational. You can't discuss a plan over a meal with him. He is a bully. And bullies understand one thing, that is strength. They also understand pain. So if he wants to pick a fight with Canada, we have to make sure it's clear that it's going to hurt Americans as well. There's going to be pain felt for not just Canadians, but also Americans. And so that's why I'm calling on my plan. We know that the United States needs our critical minerals. They're very important for the United States. So I'm calling on all political leaders to support turning off the taps on those critical minerals. Let's stop the flow of those critical minerals into the States. There's no quicker way to get Donald Trump to back away from tariffs than to shut off the tap on critical minerals, what the states need very clearly.
Now, I love how Jagmeet says this is the quickest way to get Trump to back off, which I feel is the complete opposite. First of all, Trump probably doesn't have any idea who the hell Jagmeet Singh is. But secondly, I think he does appreciate these in-person meetings, them going out of their way to fly down to Mar-a-Lago, talk with him. It shows that we're willing to work with them. And when Jagmeet was actually questioned by one of the reporters on this, because he had stated, like, this is a waste of time, they even said, well, why would you say that? This only been one time, and he just kind of brushed off the answer.
Are you suggesting that premiers and ministers should not do any kind of diplomacy with the incoming administration?
What's become clear is that meeting with Donald Trump does nothing. Ask Danielle Smith. She met with them, she tried to wine and dine him, and she came back and said, yep, there's definitely tariffs coming. So clearly that approach is not working.
But it's been
that approach
one meeting,
is clearly failed with Donald Trump. That Donald Trump only understands one thing, and that is force. We have to show that if he's going to pick a fight with Canada, it's going to hurt Americans as well. That's the only thing that he understands.
Now, I find his answer kind of interesting because I don't think anybody was under the impression that her meeting with Trump was going to dissolve the conversation of tariffs. But I do think it's good to keep the diplomacy going, showing that the premiers are willing to reach out across the aisle and meet with Trump, talk with him, try to reason with him. And this guy just says, no, it's a waste of time. See, he's still doing the tariffs. Yet then a reporter asks him, what are you guys doing as a party to reach across the aisle with your counterparts in the U.S.? And he admits that he's setting up conversations. He doesn't give any information about it because he says they're still planning them, but he admits to doing that himself.
Pick up the phone to call anyone in the States.
We have set up a number of meetings that are going to be happening soon. I'll let you know about them when they happen.
Who are you meeting with? Is it governors, business leaders? Because Mr. Poilievre has said that ministers here and others should be picking up the phone and making this case to their American counterparts. Who are you making this case to?
We'll let you know when we have those meetings set up.
About the election we're about to
For sure. And I just want to finish up, though, and I'll answer that question, then we'll wrap it up. But I want to be clear. Pierre Poilievre does not have, his plan is literally to do nothing. He's been asked about it again and again, and his plan is, no, I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to do anything until an election.
Now, this actually wasn't the first time throughout this press conference that Jagmeet attacked Pierre. He kept calling him a billionaire bootlicker, as Elon Musk wrote on X maybe a week ago or something, saying he was a good guy. So he kept emphasizing, oh, Elon Musk endorsed him, so that's why Pierre Poilievre's not going to do anything.
But what about Pierre Poilievre? His plan is literally to do nothing at a time when Canadians are desperately worried about Donald Trump and the threat to Canada. You hear that anywhere you go. If you go out and meet people, they're worried about Donald Trump, they're worried about the threat. And what is Pierre Poilievre proposing to do? Nothing. His literal plan is to do nothing. That is failure in leadership, to do nothing. Well, and we know why as well. We know he's been endorsed by Elon Musk, so he doesn't want to do anything to upset that endorsement. He's been endorsed by a billionaire because Pierre Poilievre is a billionaire bootlicker. But I want to be clear. Pierre Poilievre does not have, his plan is literally to do nothing. He's been asked about it again and again, and his plan is, no, I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to do anything until an election. At a time when Canadians are desperately worried about the impact on their jobs, their cost of living, he is saying he's going to do nothing. Let's be clear. He is not interested in defending Canadian jobs because he doesn't want to upset Elon Musk, who has endorsed him. He's a bootlicker for billionaires. That's who Pierre Poilievre is.
Now, I'm not sure if Jagmeet's aware, but Pierre Poilievre is not the prime minister, so I'm not really sure what he's expecting him to do. I do know that this idea has been floated around that because Jamil Javani, the new MP for Durham, is somewhat close or has ties to the incoming Vice President J.D. Vance due to school or whatnot, that maybe the Conservatives have some sort of leverage. But I honestly don't think that Trump cares who J.D. Vance is friends with or who he knows. If Trump wants to impose the tariffs, he's going to impose them. But Jagmeet here seems to think that we're going to hurt them more than we get hurt, or as equal. Because when he was questioned about turning off the taps in terms of energy, because he mentions critical minerals, he got questioned about energy. This is what he had to say.
But this has been like one.
Should she be turning the taps off on oil exports? Where are you on turning off the taps or restricting oil exports to the United States?
When I was in law school, I learned that when you're in a fight or when you're in a legal battle, you don't put out all your tools right at once. You escalate step by step. So that is a tool that should be on the table, but not something we start with. I'm proposing we start with critical minerals, but we need to look at every option. Every response to the tariffs that could hurt Canadians in a serious way should be met with tariffs in kind, and all solutions that we can propose should be on the table, and that's absolutely one of them.
I gotta say, I feel so bad for this guy because it's very pathetic. He tries to put on this bravado and this tough guy act. This guy's party is behind the Liberal Party, which is currently in shambles, doesn't even have a leader, and he can't seem to gain the upper hand in passing the Liberals currently as a sitting party leader. Like, nobody should be taking anything that this guy says seriously. But as always, these are just my opinions. Love to hear from you guys. Let me know what you think about all this in the comment section below. And as always, I will catch you guys on the next one. Thanks so much.